Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
My name is James.
And it's the first recording after a actual bit of football's been played. And all of that planning, all of that chatting, all of that correspondence week. And I've had a pretty average week. You've had a pretty below average week.
My game week one was disastrous, to be honest. I'll get straight to it. I finished on 34 points, which consists of Aubameyang captain returns. Yeah, so nearly half of the points were from Aubameyang. An assist from Andrew Robertson. How was your game week?
I ended up on 53 points, which I am all right about. I mean, it's above average, so I'll take it, but it could have been worse, could have been better. I don't really know. I was debating what to do with Antonio, Salah, or so on and so on. I could have ended up with Vardy instead of Antonio, but then I wouldn't have had Salah and I would have had one of the Spurs boys. So I had a captain return from Werner yesterday, which was just an assist, but I'll take it based on everything else that happened. Salah picked me up with a nice 20-pointer. Kieran Tierney's clean sheet. And Andrew Robertson's assist, and that was it. Ings, Antonio, Havertz, St. Maximin, Doherty, Trent, Ramsdale, all blanked.
How do you feel now?
I think you couldn't predict. It feels like there was a handful of players that had high ownership that popped off quite well, and we didn't have them. So
you had Salah.
Salah was the only one, yeah, which kept me at par. You needed 2 or 3 of the players that popped off to be able to actually have made any headway. This week's really, if you captain Salah, then you've pushed on, and if you didn't, then you're somewhere in the middle, and if you didn't have Salah, you're down the bottom.
How many points did you say you got?
53.
That's Salah, captain of Vardy.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been 53, right?
Yep.
So those who've done very well, it's quite easy to see how they've done well. Anybody in 100 club in game week 1, very well done. Including one guy I saw this morning who has about 25 teams, but that's
25 is an understatement.
49A, 49B, 49C. That's a different podcast. I've got no major regrets. That's the main thing to say. I'm not looking at my team and going, I've made a complete rick. And I know there was people who like, James, don't know what you've done with your team. May had ideas of wanting to do. Essentially, me having a shit week and an average week has come down to I went with Mane over Salah. Essentially that.
Yep.
And the reason, as I clarified last week, was I didn't particularly think Mane would outscore Salah. I decided I was captain Aubameyang, so I decided to swing with a differential. As I said on a couple of podcasts last week, I would not advise anybody else to do what I was doing. Like everything metric-wise looked better on Salah. So it's interesting because that's normally the move that I would make. Is the safe move rather than going, do you know what, I'm not going to captain the guy, I'm going to swing with a differential straight away in game week 1. It's not the sort of thing I'd normally do, which is not really good for me when I'm generally quite a safe player with what I do.
Sure.
But there was theory behind what I was doing. It didn't work. The rest of the team, Trent and Robertson, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I'm not worried about it. Cole Walker-Peters and Danny Ings. Walker-Peters has nearly assisted Danny Ings in fucking injury time there, and then again I'm looking at a completely different game week.
He's also nearly got himself sent off as well without giving a different game week.
It's very true.
Just touching on Trent and Robbo, I think Robertson being on corners and what have you, I don't know. I don't think there's going to be much between them. I almost feel like if I was going to sell one or the other this week, because that's a fair amount of money tied up in these guys, I may even edge towards selling Trent because of
see you later, mate. Bye.
I think Robbo could keep up with him toe to toe, but obviously Trent didn't have a good game.
I know that's why they're both in my fucking team.
I don't know if Trent didn't have a good game. All these players that didn't have a good game, you can't jump off and jump on. You can't knee jerk on them. That's the thing. Liverpool could keep 5 clean sheets in a row.
That's what so many people will be doing is knee jerking. We know that. Matt Ryan in goal for me. I'm not bothered about it. It's a 16-week selection. I wasn't expecting anything from him last night. Souček very nearly scored. Exactly what we talked about in terms of West Ham's threats of fucking hell. That was me yesterday. Nearly you today. Souček nearly scores from a wide cross again.
But West Ham are bad.
But Souček can stay. Antonio, Pereira, St. Maximin are the concerned ones, but Antonio was always going to come out this week with Mane for Fernandes and Martial. Nothing's changed my opinion on that.
You doing both moves?
Yeah. I'm probably going to do him. The Fernandes move I'm probably going to do tonight because it will probably go to price tonight. And as much as I don't want to be making these moves particularly early, there's nothing for me I can see that's going to cause a threat from virus or injuries or anything like that. So it looks like he came back from Portugal quite late. It looks like he's going to be training. It's not going to be a particular issue. I should imagine he's got back. He's been tested by the club. He's fine. Rock on, ready for Saturday is what I imagine. Martial in for Antonio was the other one. The concerns in the squad of Pereira and St. Maximin. Pereira mainly because of West Brom's change of system, which we'll talk about when we talk about the game, and we'll talk about St. Maximin a bit there as well. But essentially for me, I've got 5 new players available to me this week in Chris Wood, Charlie Taylor, Luke Ayling, Martial and Fernandes. So it feels like I'm almost popping out a mini wildcard there. Charlie Taylor probably won't start for me, but I'm just going to have a freshness already having 4 new players in there. So that's all right. It's a fucking shit start, but it's a longer term vision and plan with my squad.
Yeah. I'm sticking with Trent and Robbo. Doherty I'm going to stick with as well because after Southampton you've got Newcastle. I think I'm happy to...
As you saw at the weekend, they're shit, aren't they?
Well, I think I'm not going to stick with Doherty long term at the moment as it stands, but I'm not going to waste a transfer getting him out in the next 2 weeks. I don't see the point in that. But I think Reece James at 5 million, a million cheaper, looks like where I want to go potentially with that move. Tierney stays in. I think Arsenal defensively were okay, although I was disappointed to see him left of a 3 rather than left wing back, but I don't know if that will stay like that or whether if Saliba is fit they might change that up a little bit. We'll have to wait and see with that. Ramsdale had a bit of a shocker yesterday. They tightened up though, Sheffield United, and I think Wilder will be vexed with the way they defended in the beginning, so I'm comfortable with Ramsdale. Salah, Havertz I'm fine with. They're good enough players that they can pull it out of the bag anytime. St. Maximin is a concern, Antonio is a concern, Werner stays, Ings stays. So really, Doherty, St. Maximin, Antonio are where I'm a bit worried. Souček on the bench, Mitchell on the bench, Reed on the bench. Yeah, whatever, basically.
Whatevs.
So yeah, overall ranks don't really matter at this point, but we do need to talk about some of the games and then maybe how that factors into our longer term thinking. Before we do, just a quick shout out to all of the current people leading our mini leagues. We have 3 Patreon mini leagues. The top of the tree.
He definitely didn't tell me he was doing this.
We've got to give him a shout out because then other people think they can beat us.
That's what the fucking Patreon pods
all
are for,
the people. If you want to join our Patreon mini leagues, they're open till the end of October. Is it? We said.
Game week 7. Or
Game week 17, yeah. The scores, like there's no one in the 100 Club in any of the Patreon mini leagues, which is interesting.
Okay.
Our top tier Patreon mini league, Matt Derbyshire's top tier 81 points, which is not bad going there, Matt. Well done with that. The second tier mini league we have is Jeff Priestman. Sorry, he did top the 100 Club, 101 in the second tier, which is pretty good shout.
My guy, Suj.
Yeah, and then the third tier is Thomas Eckert, and he was on 95 points. Everybody else was in the 80s and below.
Well done, gang. Good start.
So I think there's a handful of people that have topped the 100 Club, and then it boils down to whether or not you captained Salah.
The general Planet FPL podcast is topped by Nada Zelic, 113.
Decent.
Well done.
Decent scores. So it's always interesting to gauge it.
With his team name, Joe Locomotiva, who we're probably playing in the second qualifying round in Europa League. Yeah. Should we go through some of these games?
You know who's second in one of the Patreon leagues? Martin Jansson's made his way up there as well. Mr. FPL dear. Stockholm. His spreadsheet has done wonders. He's in the lowest tier Patreon league, and he's made his way to second, 82 points. Not bad, eh? Not bad at all.
If you were looking to get guys a way to upgrade, that's a good one.
I think he's done okay with Reece James, Justin, and then Mohamed Salah as captain has worked wonders for him this week. So Let's run down the games as we do each and every week. Well, we've got 8 fixtures to rattle through, and then maybe we'll be able to take a few questions off Twitter as well. Fulham 0, Arsenal 3.
Did you watch the game?
I watched the highlights. I didn't watch the game. I don't have BT Sport, and I didn't get a dodgy stream. So
first shock of the season come through. 11:23 from Rockstar. Cheers, mate.
Yeah,
23 minutes after
off
the
to
deadline.
walk the dog. Oh, by the way, Mitro's benched. I mean, if there's ever a way to drop
Buffy was so good.
And the interesting thing is that most people won't have been on Twitter at that time because you're not expecting a fucking team leak, are you? So it didn't influence like ownership. You didn't see mass exodus or people benching him or anything because of that
It
tweet.
was 23 minutes after the deadline. So
was it after the deadline? Sorry. I thought
Yeah.
he dropped it just before the hour and a half deadline.
This is why the deadline moved, doesn't it? Not specifically just because of him, but to obviously stop that sort of thing happening.
But it was before the official team was announced.
It
which
was,
is
yeah.
nice.
It was amusing. And people were still moaning about it. It's 23 minutes after deadline. Get the fuck over it, honestly. But it certainly didn't help Fulham on the day. They had some moments in the game. I mean, Arsenal nearly gifted them a goal right at the start to Kamara. And they had some link-up play in the final third, which was quite nice. I could see patterns of play that they were trying, which were decent. However, this was a stroll for Arsenal, really. And I was, unfortunately, very impressed with them. Not to get carried away because of the opposition. But one of the things I'm going to talk about specifically was Arsenal. With Arsenal, something that our correspondent Adam at 35 Who had highlighted. And this is worth looking for. Basically, I think this is a term that you're going to hear a lot over the next 8 months or so in football. And it's called open play set pieces. Where we think all the time, corner routine is terminology we use and stuff. This is becoming a buzz idea now of open play set pieces, a tactical movement all the way from, in this case with Arsenal, in terms of how the game is manipulated and played from the goalkeeper to play into certain areas, for it to end up in the fullback area, for it to end up on the right hand side of the pitch, for it to end up getting swapped to Aubameyang. Now you can say it's coincidental, but the Aubameyang's goal on Saturday and the goal against Liverpool in the Community Shield were nearly fucking identical in terms of not the finish, the whole move was nearly identical. So you're seeing, this is, I mean, don't get me started on Tottenham, but on Tottenham, which we've already recorded, I talked about Tottenham and lack of structure in terms of the way they play with the ball. Arsenal have clear visualisation of how they want to play when they're in possession. I tweeted roundabouts half-time during the game and said Arteta is the best thing to happen to Arsenal in a long time.
Yeah, we've known it for a while. I mean, just the way he carries himself, the way he speaks. I think it's interesting the way you describe it as an open play set piece, because there was what's happening in the games right now. I think I noticed it yesterday particularly, is they can get really slowed down to the point where somebody at the back is holding the ball and everybody else is pretty much static. That's what happens at a set piece, right? Everybody takes up their positions, you wait for the ball to be delivered. It's happening in open play because the games are so slow, and it's probably exacerbated by the lack of crowds and stuff. So you get periods where everybody's just set in their positions, people are knocking it around but not running. I'm like, this is a sport, like no one's running, they're walking around. But when you get set up like that and you see that, okay, they've got their 2 banks of 4 set up, let's play this move, I can see it. It definitely plays into the current style of football, plays into it.
The one here that's why this particular one is so relevant for Arsenal is the end of the fucking move means getting Aubameyang one-on-one with someone.
He doesn't miss when he's in that position.
When he cuts in, you just think he's going to score, don't you?
Yeah.
So the thing is, you can say you can stop it, but then look at the goal he scored against Chelsea in the cup final, where Rudiger shapes him all the way to say, I'm going to block this shot. And he puts the fellow on his arse, right, and comes back on the inside and then dinks the goalkeeper. And he's a quality forward. He'll be a quality FPL asset. He's likely to be my captain at the weekend. They've got a difficult run beyond this West Ham fixture in game week 2. Therefore, my intention is to sell Aubameyang after captaining him this game week. A few other notable players to mention. Obviously, Gabriel at centre-half after the early mistake looked quite good. He reminded me, the way he passes the ball actually reminded me of Jan Vertonghen. I've spoken about this before, about wrapping a pass in from centre-half. He's got a little more physicality than Vertonghen, though, so he should actually adapt to the league quite well. It was a good, solid opening performance. The other really tactical thing from Arsenal, and this is worth watching to see if it happens again at West Ham or in game week 2, was the positioning of Bellerin and Maitland-Niles, who played as wing-backs but didn't play as wing-backs. They basically played as inside wing-backs, which is quite an unusual one. We've seen this a lot with Walker and particularly Zinchenko for Man City if they played a 4. This was really unusual in a 3, and you have to be careful on the eye test because there are some things about this that will worry Aubameyang owners. It shouldn't. So what happens is essentially you've got the back 3 and the 2 wing backs when they're in comfortable position come into almost holding midfield positions, and the 2 wide forwards, in this case Aubameyang and Willian, stretch really wide. Then at different points of game in the move, they'll move again. So Lacazette will drop deep, and then Aubameyang will move in inside. Then it allows Maitland-Niles to go a bit higher. It allows Tierney to play like a more conventional fullback coming on. There's really nice movements in the way in the way they play. I don't fucking enjoy watching it for a second because everyone knows that I don't really like them. Willian has got more assists in I don't know how long, but it's more than Ozil now for Arsenal. Good start for him, and
he's also played more minutes than Mesut Ozil in God knows how long. He's played 74 minutes. I don't even know how long we'd have to go back to rack up 74 minutes from Mesut Ozil. So it's a bit of an unfair comparison. If Mesut Ozil was playing, he probably still would have beaten him in terms of assists. But
I mean, you say that. I mean,
I know the point.
How many assists did Mesut Ozil get last season? Do we know the answer to that?
Who cares? All I know is that I think Willian, 168 points last year, 9 goals, 9 assists. I think Willian is a decent, interesting option if he plays week in, week out. But
Ozil got 3 assists last season, so there you go. Williams matched it. The thing that struck me, and it wouldn't struck me because I don't think anybody learned anything about Willian at the weekend they didn't already know. But sometimes certain players go to certain teams and you go, that fits, that works. It felt like that as soon as I saw Willian playing for them. It felt like it just worked. He looked like an Arsenal player. The way he's comfortable on the ball, the way he's happy to carry it, the switch of play for Aubameyang is a simple pass, but he does it perfectly well.
Yep.
I think you'll see that a lot. He's going to be on the set pieces as well, I think, a lot. It might be a little bit to Aubameyang's detriment in terms of free kicks outside the box, maybe, because Willian is probably the better of the 2 from that perspective. He's gone up in price. It's 8.1. Him, Patrick Bamford, what a guy. The 2 players have gone up in price to date so far at time of recording. I think that's a lot of Pepe movement to Willian. Still only 12.6% owned. I think if you go in, though, you're looking short term. Liverpool and Manchester City in game weeks 3 and 5 afterwards. It felt like if you were going to own Arsenal, it felt like they probably should have been owned prior to Fulham. And possibly for a lot of people, escape afterwards this week.
Yeah, maybe.
A big choice for Aubameyang owners. I think we've seen, if Aubameyang does really well this weekend, you're going to see that real conflict like what we've seen with Salah owners this week who were thinking, okay, maybe it's a 1 week. Now they think, can I sell when he's got a hat-trick, etc. It'll be really interesting to follow that one. Good start from Arsenal. I said they'll finish 5th or 6th this season. I tell you now, they'll finish 5th.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about whether or not they'll finish 5th. I know it won't be your team that are challenging them for the 5th spot. It might be one of the others in Wolves or what have you.
If Arsenal can find consistency, they can challenge for the top 4. Definitely.
Correct. Agreed. I think this little run that we're about to go on now for Arsenal, which involves Liverpool and City and United in the next 5, and then Sheffield United and Leicester, which are both also very difficult games, is going to be a real test. 15 points up for grabs. If they come out with 10 or more, then I think they'll be very, very happy.
They'll be fucking walking around Holloway Road with the fucking cocks in their
Exactly. I think it's going to be a really interesting test. But
I don't think it's these games that will define Arsenal's season.
No, it probably isn't.
It's the games where they need to be consistent.
Yeah, without that. It's always been the problem. Fulham struggling, right? Bottom of the table now already.
They need additions. This team was essentially what got promoted bar Mitrovic.
Yep.
There were a lot of players still around from 2 years ago when they got relegated. They've got Lamina to come into the team. They've got competition in goal now, although we do think Rodak will probably stay in goal. There's a right back who's come in who I don't think they've given a price to yet. Is it Kenny Tete? Is he the new signing?
Tete, yeah.
I think he is. He's a right back. And they've had issues in that position going back 2 years for them. So that will help them out. They need more. Absolutely need more. Unfortunately, I can't see them staying up with what they've got currently. I don't see any goals in that midfield at all. No. But Arsenal's probably not what we should be judging them on.
No. Palace 1, Southampton 0. This was a bit of a surprise. I thought Southampton would hit the ground running and give Palace a real good game, because Palace obviously a little bit patched up at the back as well. When you see Scott Dan trotting out and Tyrick Mitchell and what have you, you know that they've got a bit of an issue with injuries and what have you. It just never really... On the flip side, we know that Roy's stubborn, right? We know that they set themselves up and are difficult to beat and break down. And Zaha playing through the middle provided a threat. And they did well to get the 3 points. Credit to them.
Yeah, I think Palace deserved the win, actually. Southampton annoyed me in the first half because they just played completely into Palace's hands. I feel when you play Palace, you've got to make the pitch big. If you're just narrow and you sit in front of them, they're very capable of defending the penalty area really well, areas around the box. You don't feel like you see too many people score screamers from 25 yards against Palace. They defend the general zones quite well. And their best defensive tactic that they've shown, and this has been going on for them with 5-6 years or so, is can they isolate and get 2-on-3s, 3-on-4s on the counter-attack and get the ball forward quickly over the top. And Southampton didn't play with enough tempo, but yet still played with a very high line. I think Palace are one of the rare teams who, when you're pressing, you probably want good distance between your midfield and your defence, and you actually want them to sit off a bit. If I've got Zaha running at two of my defenders, I'm not bothered. Like, yeah, go and take him on. What I don't want him is him going in behind.
Yep.
And the same applies to certain other players with that. Jordan Ayew, Andros Townsend. I don't want them in behind. And I just felt Southampton completely played into their hands first half. Obviously, second half, they lifted the tempo a little bit, so the game became a little bit easier for them. On Palace, Zaha through the middle is interesting. He should genuinely be on people's radar. Look, it's worth saying they've got United and Chelsea away in the next 3 game weeks. I think it's worth another look come game week 5.
Yeah, the thing with game week 5 as well that people need to note is the transfer window will be closed by then, or closing between 5 and 6 or whenever it works out to.
Before 5, isn't it?
I want to know that Palace, he's staying at Palace before I go near him. I think what I don't want to see is this tearing it up to get himself a transfer wherever he needs to go. Do you think he could fill a role in that hole for you guys? Probably not. He's a winger, isn't he? He's not a creative force.
No, we need a creative player.
Yeah. But Zaha...
And he's a gooner. So.
His ownership's reasonable at 9% for someone that's been in consistent.
Listen,
it's
what he's
bad.
done at the weekend will get people's interest, because straight away you're talking about an OOP. Now what's interesting is what happens next. So they played with Schlupp on the left, Andros Townsend on the right, Jordan Ayew and Wilfried Zaha up front, basically. With Zaha being allowed to stay in areas where he can be last man, basically, and go in behind. So instantly, just that alone makes him interesting. Eze, who came on late and is obviously a very technically gifted player, looks real talent. He's probably going to play off the left, and you've got Batshuayi to come into this. Now, what we don't know the answer to yet is, does Jordan Ayew go back to the right, or does Zaha go out and play out there?
Yeah.
Or do they change system? Was this something specifically for Southampton? Because basically both teams played essentially variations of 4-4-2. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay that way. But Wilfried Zaha genuinely will be serious interest to me come that game week 5 period if he's still playing up front. And he's as OOP as anybody at this minute. And right now that should definitely have people's attention.
I worry for Spurs this weekend because I feel like what we saw from Southampton wasn't a representation of how they like to play and press and harry. And Hassan Hootel does get them up. Like when they've had a bad performance straight after, you can quite often see them really play with a lot of energy. And I think they'll obviously play a weakened side in the Carabao Cup, so they'll have a week to train and get ready for the game against you guys. If you're not on it and don't play with high tempo, they could be swarming all over you. So I'm not, as a Danny Ings owner, I'm not worried about what happened at the weekend. Just put it down to a bad day at the office, and they didn't perform as they should. And I still think Danny Ings is good to hold. Any thoughts on coming off Danny Ings?
No. None. More likely to fucking captain the guy this game, which mate. No, I'm not. Danny Ings will definitely get chances on Saturday.
Yeah.
So will Che Adams, by the way. They would definitely have chances, the two of them.
Definitely patience with the Southampton guys that you've got hold for now.
Missing the little something there without Armstrong's extra attacking threat. I think against us, I think Smallbone will come out the team, and I think Gineppo will probably play. It might mean that Redmond switches flanks to then go directly at Davis is a possibility, but I think they'll add that extra offensive player. Smallbone, I don't want to be critical of a young player. I don't think he's a right-hand side midfield player, is probably the first thing to say. Out of his depth would be really harsh, but I don't quite know what he offers to Southampton at the moment. But he's a young boy, he'll improve, definitely. He stood out as being not a great performance for me personally. I didn't see the threat there that you normally get with Armstrong coming inside off that position. The other one to be careful of with Southampton is Vestergaard came on for Bednarek at half-time. Vestergaard, in my opinion, is complete fucking wank. I don't rate him as a player at all. I don't know what the availability is of Mohamed Salisu, but if Vestergaard's going to play at the weekend, that would concern me for those who have the likes of McCarthy and Walker-Peters. Put it this way, at the moment, I'm more likely to play Walker-Peters than Mateus Pereira this game week. That's how I feel about the Southampton-Tottenham game.
Interesting. Liverpool 4, Leeds 3. Very interesting game. Well, Leeds getting a lot of credit after this game, and quite rightly. I mean, they tried to take the game to Liverpool. I thought Liverpool were not good.
No, Liverpool were nowhere near their best.
At the same time,
the final result was about right.
Yeah, I mean, the goals that they scored, man-child in the house. I just reset it, mate. So you got 20 minutes. Thank you. That's all right.
He looks so funny in his shirt and his big black gloves.
They're called I can't even talk about Peter gloves.
What are they?
They're gloves that somebody shouldn't wear. So I think the Harrison goal was a great finish,
goal.
Right, he hit it from there. Yep. But again, if you hit that, like, he might score it 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. But it was a great finish. I don't want to take it away from him, but if you look at it, I suppose the stats don't lie in that Leeds' XG was very low because they should have not scored some of those goals. I don't know what Van Dijk and Alisson were doing for Bamford's goal, to be honest with you. The third, I'll take it.
Can't blame Alisson.
Okay, I don't know what Van Dijk was doing, but there was a mix-up between them that was just comical.
Well, I think Alisson could have done better on Harrison's goal.
Yeah, and then the third goal, I mean, it was a great through ball. And he took it very well. Did the click. So on the flip side, the amount of times that Liverpool were wasteful up top in front of goal, it felt like if Liverpool played at their best and Leeds played at their best, Liverpool would actually probably beat them 5-1 or something. Having said that, it's interesting to see what we're going to get from Leeds this season. I don't know if I feel any more confident which Leeds asset to go for, though, necessarily.
I definitely want to talk about Leeds tactically. I'm going to give some rare praise to a fucking football analysis there. If you want a good understanding of what Leeds tried to do to Liverpool at the weekend and why it shouldn't be a concern for those of you who own Liverpool defensive assets going forward, get yourself on Jermaine Genius's analysis of Leeds on Match of Day 2 on Sunday night. It was really, really good. It's highlighting... I spoke about a few months ago about a game under Pochettino for Spurs. We played 4-1-4-1 against Manchester City and blew them away. It was Guardiola's first defeat, and it was a Tottenham team without Kane and Moussa Dembele. Found a system that caused City mass problems. 4-1-4-1 is a system that I think when you say it to people, it has a stigma for being quite a defensive system. It is completely the opposite. It's a very, very offensive tactic. It's basically the idea in principle of emptying the midfield, and you trust one player to dictate that area of a zone. Now, in this case, it's Calvin Phillips for Leeds. In that particular game for Tottenham, it was Victor Wanyama. They played very different roles. Wanyama's role was to win the ball back and get it to others. Phillips is to run the game. And it gave Liverpool... What they did is basically the other four midfielders go into really high positions. And what it did particularly well against Liverpool was it gave Robertson and Trent a massive problem. We've spoken for a long time about how do you nullify this threat of Robertson and Trent, Liverpool's best creative problems. That is the best idea I've seen anyone come up against to try and nullify their threat. Now, don't get me wrong, you still can't stop Trent from the set pieces. You're still not going to stop Robertson bombing on when Liverpool have the ball and stuff. But in terms of starting positions and the effect on the game that it had on Liverpool negatively, this was very good from Leeds. It will be fascinating to see if we see the same again in upcoming games. And I suspect, because we were warned that Leeds won't change, we will see this again in upcoming games. It makes, for me particularly, Harrison and Click, who obviously scored the two of Leeds' 3 goals at the weekend, both for 5.5 million. Very interesting options. I would actually prefer Click, who scored the first goal, because I like the fact he arrives in the box. Harrison's first goal was absolutely terrific. Played from a beautiful ball by Phillips. Just a brilliant goal all round. And tactically, when we had Andy on, I said to him, when we did Correspondent Week, FPL Tactician, I said, tell me, Andy, where am I getting this idea from in my head that you're going to bloody some noses and lose some games that you shouldn't? And it's stuff like this is the reason why. Because nobody else is going to go and play that way against Liverpool. To basically start in a position where your centre-halves have got the ball and you're splitting the game into 2 blocks of 5. You say, I'm going to trust our 5 defenders. And if we lose the ball, that's all we're defending with. At Anfield, away to Liverpool. And you're going to attack with 5. And it's pinning Liverpool back. Suddenly, Liverpool in a transition phase in their mind, we're like, do we go and press here or not? And Gene has highlighted it brilliantly where on the goal, Phillips gets time to turn on the ball, centre midfield at Anfield. And the reason for that is because they're the other 5 attacking midfield players, Liverpool are like, well, we can't go and press here. Look how many fucking men they've got forward. What happens after that is the next time they do it, Henderson thinks, fuck this, goes and presses Phillips, and they play it a different way round the corner, and it actually leads to the second goal. So they've got variations in terms of the way they can get out. They're very brave. The one negative that struck me, and it could be because it was Liverpool, was I didn't see anything in that game that made me think Ayling and Dallas are going to get a lot of returns this season because of the way they set up tactically in that game. Now, we might see variations of that.
Yeah, I think we need to see a few more games before we really
Correct,
judge it.
Absolutely. And Ayling will start for me this week at home to Fulham, no doubt about it. I was just so impressed with what they tried to do tactically. The flip of it is, when it breaks down for them and they play against sides who, let's say, are more defensively solid, they're going to actually have a problem. They could play a weaker side and they'll have bigger problems defensively than what they've had in this game. Because teams will be ready to set up with it. In an odd way, it's more difficult for Liverpool to deal with something like this.
Because they should be playing on the front foot.
Well, and because they won't come up against it. Whereas you'll get sides like, take Wolves, for example. Wolves, and we saw a bit of difference in this yesterday, but Wolves generally are happy to sit off and say, there's our 5, what you got? And the midfield 2 or 3 in front sit very deep when they haven't got the ball. So Wolves' attitude to that would be, go on then. Yeah, that's fine. I'm used to dealing with that. I'm used to having 4 or 5 players coming at me because we retreat and cede possession so much. For Liverpool, it knocked them. I don't think they understood what they were playing against. That said, what they did offensively was enough. They had plenty more attempts on goal. The XG has been highlighted, was like 3 something to 0.5 or something. Liverpool deserved to win the game. The other problem for Leeds is the manner of the goals. 2 penalties, all right, 1 was soft. Rodrigo's ridiculous for the winning one.
Yep.
And 2 goals conceded from set pieces. If I'd have said you Liverpool scored 4 goals from set pieces, you wouldn't have believed that, I don't think.
I probably would. I'd have said Trent's going to have put 2 in the top corner because that's what he does. They can win penalties because of the pace at which they've got players running into the box. So I wouldn't have imagined all 4 goals maybe coming from set pieces, but Liverpool can do that. Anybody that owns Liverpool assets, there's no advice to come off or anything like that.
No, I think that's part of the point of what I'm trying to say is in the way that Leeds played is don't worry about it for Liverpool.
Yeah, just
Chelsea ain't going to play like that against them at the weekend.
No.
So it'll be more about how they work the ball forward. In Chelsea's case, probably against Liverpool, they'll probably look to really counter-attack hard and fast on them. Leeds were happy to go, we're going to play you.
Yeah.
Andy was spot on when he said they'll have like nearly 50% of the ball. They did really well.
They're 51 in some stats that I've seen. A bit more.
They did really well. I think they confused Liverpool. But from Liverpool perspective, defensively, in terms of them guys, I don't worry about it for a second. And on Salah, you guys have obviously got a choice to make in terms of what you want to do. My advice for those who are thinking of holding, the only thing I would say is just have a look at the weeks coming up, the 4 or 5 game weeks afterwards, and ask yourself realistically, do you want to captain him? That's all. But he showed again his capability at the weekend. And he was very, very good. Yeah. By the way,
he's on it.
He looked
confident,
fresh and
fit,
lively. Yeah,
lively.
He was
very,
good,
very
man.
good. That's why it's given me concerns about moving him on potentially this weekend. It feels almost like a transfer for the sake of a transfer when he could easily return in any of these games, and I've got other fires to put out.
And we should mention just briefly on Bamford, he probably has done enough to stay in the team, by the way, for game week 2, as much as I've taken a little bit of the piss about the fact he's gone up in price. Look, he's got Fulham at home the weekend. He probably will start, I think. But I don't think that's going to last for long.
No. His ownership's still very, very low, so it's not going to be a big deal. West Ham 0, Newcastle 2. Saturday night football was very dull. You said you enjoyed the game. I found it particularly boring. I did actually,
because there were chances in the game. The problem, something psychological when I watch your games at your stadium, because of the outside of the pitch and stuff, it feels even more soulless than some of the other ones in an odd way. But there were plenty of chances in the game. I think it lacked a lot.
Well, there were way more chances for Newcastle.
I think it lacked some quality, no doubt about it. But
some quality. From a West Ham point of view, there was no quality.
I definitely enjoyed it more than watching Tottenham the next day, I can assure you.
I honestly, the West Ham performance was that bad that I wouldn't take anything away from it. We spoke about it a bit on Tottenham, and the patrons will get a bit more detail. But I just think everything didn't work. We weren't able to keep the ball. We weren't able to string more than 3 or 4 passes together. And it's very important for us in the style of play that we have that we have some outballs, people that we can play it out to that will give us some time for the midfielders to catch up with the attackers, Antonio or Bowen. Bowen, Fornals and Antonio hardly got a touch of the ball, and whenever they did, they kept losing it and it kept coming back at us. I thought Hayden and Lascelles did very well in just snuffing out any glimpses of attacks that we potentially had, and before you knew it, the ball was coming back at us.
I thought Hayden in midfield was really good, actually.
Yeah, when he picked up his yellow card, I feel like it was in the first 20 minutes. I was like, right, okay, the defensive midfielder's on a yellow card. We need to target this guy now because he's not going to be able to. We just didn't get a glove on him afterwards, and he really controlled it. Shelby brought the ball forward well. Jimi Hendrix is a good player. St. Maximin was a little bit
anonymous. Jimi Hendrix just got 50% of his attacking returns for the season in one game, didn't he?
Well, maybe. But Callum Wilson looked sharp and fit. Andy Carroll's always a bit of a presence and a threat, and that gives Callum Wilson space to move around. But I'm not. I'm a bit concerned about West Ham assets. Not Souček, because he's a value pick, isn't he? Not really a premium pick. Antonio, I'm worried for, so I'll be moving him on. I'm actually going to take your approach to FPL. I'm going to own no West Ham players between now and the end of the season, other than Souček, just because he's a value pick, right? He's there as a kind of bench filler at 5 million. If you had...
I don't know why you do this to yourself, because you know one good result and you'd be like, I want to get Antonio.
It's not worth it, because we can just as easily play as badly as we did. But on the flip side, I wouldn't encourage anybody to be looking at West Ham assets necessarily.
Nobody's looking. The only thing the guys want to know is, shall I sell or not? That's the only thing the guys want to know. No one's going to buy any of your players.
It boils down to what other fires are you trying to put out. For me, Antonio to Callum Wilson is a move I really want to make. I think Callum Wilson's going to thrive at Newcastle. The problem is I want to move on Doherty as well. I don't like the likes of St. Maximin in my squad. So what I need to ask myself and what you need to ask yourself is Antonio the biggest problem that I need to solve this week? Or is moving Salah onto Aubameyang to give me the best captain this week my better option? I feel like I can stomach Antonio for a couple more weeks before I get him out, because he can score at any opportunity or any moment and give Arsenal a bit of problem. But it's not something that I look in my team and think, yeah, that will be all right for a while. Doherty, again, is exactly the same. I think I can stomach him for a little while, but I don't like seeing him in there. So it's down to how many other fires you've got in your squad to put out, mate.
No, I think that's fair. I actually think Antonio is a reasonable hold, actually. I think you're spot on. I think those who have issues elsewhere, I wouldn't threat to keep him, actually. He's got a record of scoring in these horrible fixtures.
Yeah.
In an odd way, you'll play a little bit deeper, go even more direct into him, and he might have some success, actually. So, I mean, look, it was part of my plan to sell anyway, so it doesn't change my thinking, but probably not too many are going to be in the position where they can go Antonio to Martial as part of their plan this week. So, I think you've got probably others more looking at Calvert-Lewin or Wilson, as you've mentioned. The Calvert-Lewin will be particularly attractive because, I mean, look at the fixtures of the two teams this week as well now. Everton against West Brom, West Ham at Arsenal. You know West Ham have got tough fixtures to come. Souček, I'm telling you, mate, he ain't going fucking nowhere.
No, it's because of his price that I'm not going to be selling him. But if he was 5.5 or 6 million, I'd be...
The only way he gets sold for me is if I'm absolutely convinced that I want to end up with 4 midfielders who are definitely going to start for me every week. So if I ended up, say I move my midfield about now where it becomes, I don't know, for example, Aubameyang, De Bruyne, Fernandes and Pulisic, at that point Souček can fuck off for me and I'll get a 4.4 or a 4.3. It becomes kind of worthless to me. At the moment, I'll leave him there. I'm going to wait. Very nearly scored exactly kind of threatening goal we talk about all the time. The ball goes wide and he just gets in the box. Don't worry about the build-up play. With him, the worst thing you can do is look at like an average touch map and that kind of thing, because literally the only thing that matters is where's he at set pieces and how often can West Ham get the ball into wide positions. And I've said this before, oddly enough, the fact that you've got tougher fixtures might be to his benefit. The fact that it's going to be a slower play in terms of build-up, you're either going to get out one or two ways. One, you go direct into Antonio, or two, the ball goes into wide areas and someone like Bowen wants to step inside and whip the ball in. Souček is not going to think twice to fly into the box, even against better opposition. So I think it's fine. I don't intend to start him this week, and I expect he'll probably fucking score now.
Yeah.
That's the danger with someone like that as well. You leave him out and he could score in any game.
Yeah. I think for Newcastle, Jamal Lewis at 4.5 million looked decent considering it was his first game. And apologies, Norwich fans, but it's a step up in terms of going from Norwich to Newcastle in terms of expectation. I think a little bit.
They're okay with that. They won at the weekend. Great fun.
If I had to pick Newcastle assets, it would be Callum Wilson, then Jamal Lewis, and St. Maximin on what I saw then jumps a bit further down the list. I didn't really think he had that much of an effect on the game. It was back to no end products again. Yeah,
I think what happened here is if there was one player who I was very confident about going into the weekend and less confident afterwards was St. Maximin. In spite of the fact I didn't particularly expect him to return at the weekend. I actually thought you'd probably keep a clean sheet and win. How daft is that? But where he played concerned me. And I'll give you a perfect example. Go back and look at the clip where Wilson plays in Shelby in the first half and Shelby hits the side netting. And they break on you 2 or 3. And I'm watching the game and I'm like, where is he? Where is he? Because he's got so much pace to burn, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Where is he? And the attack started from Declan Rice losing possession on the edge of the box. I'm told that a few people said I have to tell you he wasn't very good at the weekend.
Well, and what?
Yeah, exactly.
And what?
Exactly.
Like, everybody has a bad game every now and then.
But basically, what happens is, and this can happen with Newcastle, and I think it's part of a trait that goes back to when they had Benitez and stuff. When Newcastle win the ball back, they're basically in a back 6, and St. Maximin's left back, and it's just too far. Now, Newcastle need to be careful what they do with this because the guy is such a threat. You want him having the ball and running at people. You don't want to win a counter-attack and him... It might have just been that one particular attack we ended up going very deep with the fullback. And it's good that he's tracking his runners, by the way. But for a player like him, you always want him to leave himself in a position where he can go and counter-attack well. That's always what you want. You don't want him being in that position like we used to joke about, say, Rashford at left back for United, for example. Like, what's the point? Might as well play another left back. And you don't want him being that deep. I want him in high positions where he can get at people. And because Newcastle did work situations where they had 3-on-4s and stuff like that, where they looked like they were capable of causing damage. What I liked most about the performance, and it's probably, again, it's not to the benefit of St. Maximin, was the movement of Wilson. Wilson knows if he's going to play with Carroll, doesn't need to stay between the lines. The other fellow will win everything in the box. He can go and work the channels, particularly likes to work the right-hand channel. Basically, as soon as Shelvey gets the ball, off, because he knows Shelvey's good enough to deliver. So there were some really nice things about Newcastle at the weekend. St. Maximin, as an FPL prospect, wasn't one of them, I didn't think. That said, look, it's Brighton home at the weekend, who were one of the more fun sides to watch in this league. And then it's Tottenham away, who are one of the least fun sides to watch in this league. And he can do some damage in those couple of games. It's not a panic or anything. His price point is 5.5 million. You're not expecting the world anyway, right?
To me, I'm fine with him sitting there and place holding until Armstrong's fit, and then I'll assess it at that point because there's nowhere else I want to go at 5.5 million.
What will be interesting with this as well is because we assume, and we should never assume this with Brighton, I assume, that they're going to play this 3-5-2 a lot more, Brighton, which might be more like a 3-4-1-2 or 3-4-2-1, depending on opposition. But in this particular fixture last season, Brighton gave Newcastle massive problems playing a back three. So be really interested to see how that works out on Sunday and what role St. Maximin can have in it. What I want with him now is kind of what I want with Zaha. I want him getting into central areas where he can go and cause some real damage. The other thing that puts you off with St. Maximin, he's erratic with his shooting.
We knew that.
He always goes for power. And the one or two glimpses he had was all he looked for was power. And I think he's got more in his locker than that, actually. That's what I've spoken in the past. When I spoke about that Tottenham game in game week 35, the one thing I mentioned about him was composure. If it was one thing that was missing. He's got all the tools. Really good player. Do you want to talk about West Ham anymore?
No, we want to talk about...
I didn't think you would.
West Brom and Leicester. How much of this was West Brom were rubbish and Leicester were decent? Because we were concerned a bit about Leicester with the injuries at the back and what have you. Justin, for the people that took a punt on him, came in with an assist, which he was short term, but all well and good.
I thought Leicester were really poor for half hour. But in hindsight, having got to the end of the game, I think a lot of that had to do with the surprising change of West Brom, which in terms of tactical setups was probably the most surprising of game week 1, to see them go basically a very defensive 5-4-1. It worked for long periods. The boy was coming up from right wing back. Furlong was a bit of a threat. I mean, Justin got booked and it was the right decision. But in years gone by, I could have well seen red for that, actually, as it being deemed as last man. For me, he looks very uncomfortable at left back. A lot of Leicester fans responded to a tweet I sent at the weekend and said they probably thought that Castagne would go to left back, who obviously played really well at right back, when Pereira is back available. My argument I didn't understand with that is, well, why don't you just start with Castagne at left back now and play Justin at right back where he's more natural? I don't know what the thinking with that is. There is a thought that, and again, this doesn't really overly make sense to me, and it's something I want to watch closer when they play Burnley at the weekend, that there is an overemphasis to attacking down the right-hand side of the pitch because of Ayoze Perez wants to come inside when he plays there. Obviously, Harvey Barnes is very offensive on the left-hand side. Maddison, when he plays, likes to drift left. So does Vardy, if you think about it. So they do tend to overload the left-hand side of the pitch, which then does leave space on the right-hand side. And you've seen Castanier's gone and attacked the box and obviously scored the first goal at the weekend. The sort of goal, in fairness, which I'm not sure if Justin scores or not, right? The thinking is that Castanier can probably play attacking or defensive fullback role probably equally as well. I just think Justin could have played as the offensive fullback here, couldn't he? That's why I'm a bit confused about.
He's coming at 5.5 million, Castanier, as well. He's not coming cheap. So it's one to keep an eye on. Vardy obviously banging in the goals again, but against the bad West Brom side. You're thinking of moving off Pereira?
Yeah, I mean, one game shouldn't judge it, but if you're going to play like that, neither Pereira or Diangana are going to be assets. Like, not at all. They'll finish the season with about 25 goals if they play like that all season.
Yeah,
there will be nothing in them. Now, they will add. I'm pretty confident of that. But basically, what the worst thing about the formation, that system, the 5-4-1 can have great benefits if it's applied at the right time. The problem is you've got your two best players furthest fucking away from each other. So what you want is Pereira and Diangana. They can play in wide areas, but with the freedom to move where they can get involved.
Yeah.
The problem with that particular system, with the five at the back, is you retreat into positions. So for them to have to come into the wide areas and come and meet and do all the link stuff, which we know they're really good at together, and then get involved with Robinson and stuff, it's too much to do unless one of them decides to go flying across the pitch. If they've got the ball on the left-hand side, the player on the right's give them freedom to go and move or whatever. Otherwise, I don't see the returns in them at the moment. Pereira's a little different because he's going to be on the set pieces and stuff, so there will be some, I'm sure. But no, I mean, I couldn't see anything in them at the moment that would give me hope that they would stay up. Personally, nothing at all. And in fact, the way they got stretched defensively, the longer the game went on, became a little bit worrying. Definitely something for those wanting to attack Chelsea in game week 3 should be aware of, that yes, if you get in front against West Brom, it looks like the game can get stretched a little bit more. Slav's not the sort of manager where they've had previous ones that have probably gone, I don't want to take the hide in here. Slav will try and get back in the game,
give it a bash.
I think.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
One to keep an eye on, but I mean, yeah. Thing is, Leicester weren't great in my opinion, and it's worth saying they've still got Maddison to come back. The other thing, just briefly on Castagna and Pereira, is the other fault is that Pereira might end up playing right midfield when he's available.
But if he does, all over that.
Well, wouldn't we all be from a base level ownership of basically 0? Yes, of course we all would be. I think my opinion is, on what I watched yesterday, they will still try and target a left back, but a lot of the Leicester fans telling me that's probably not likely. But one to follow. That's one of the reasons why I didn't want Justin, was I don't know how long he's going to be in the team for. Didn't know what kind of system to be playing. And Diddy did quite well at centre half, but they were never tested, man.
No.
You feel like West Brom would have been better off going direct if they could have found a way. Maybe playing Charlie Austin might have been just try and rough up a bit, get his body in there and get people to link him round there. I didn't like what I saw from West Brom on Sunday, I'm afraid.
When we talked about West Ham a second ago, and I've got the stats all up on my screen in front of me, you know the bonus point system, and you can look down and it gives you the number and brackets of how many points the person racked up before they got onto the BPS. And I didn't want to mention West Ham's because it was so bad. Mm-hmm. Like Rice, 15, Diop, 15, Ogbonna, 14, Fredericks, 14. Then I opened up the next game, we're going to talk about Spurs. Oh my God, there's worse. Lloris 15, Davis 15, Dyer 13, Alderweireld 12. Is that just
telling
sum
me
it
Davis beat Dyer on the BPS? I never read the end of it.
Does that pretty much sum it up? Like I was surprised that it was that low and that bad. Wow.
I must apologise.
Both of us awful as each other.
Yeah, I must apologise for the listeners who are waiting for me to go off. We've already recorded our Tottenham podcast for Patreon, and I've kind of let it all go there. I've not really got a lot more to add other than, yeah, if you got any of them white shirts in your FPL team, guys, get them the fuck out. I don't even wait a second for it. This was pitiful, awful, depressing, tactically inept. If Mourinho says press one more time, I might personally go and fucking find the geezer and slap him myself, because I don't think he knows what a press is. I did that in detail on the Patreon podcast. Son has 2 goals in 10, I think it is. Lucas Moura 0 goals in 16. Bergwijn about 1 in 12 or something. Basically, we're not getting goals.
I just did it.
We only get goals if Harry Kane gets the service. There is not a creative player in that fucking team. So until there's a creative player in that team, i.e. if Lo Celso or Ndombele show up that they can be that player, I suspect they can't, or we go and buy one, this is going to be a very depressing season for my team. On Doherty, FPL General called it right from an eye test perspective when he said this is the same Doherty that you saw for Wolves from an FPL perspective. It's very different from a Tottenham perspective in terms of defensively. It's not necessarily going to be a good thing, but I think he can probably get the attacking returns that he normally gets at Wolves. Dyer, Davis, at 5 million, you're not going to lose a lot for your life, but I mean, on what I saw on Sunday, yeah, the question that I got asked the most, Dyer or Davis, we know what the answer is now. Suj, it was neither is the correct answer. Yep.
Let's talk about Everton then, because they are more of interest. Now, there's a number of interesting options there. Luka Dean picked up max bonus points for the clean sheet.
Great goal, by the way.
Is he back on your radar? He's had a little price drop this year, hasn't he? 6 million.
It's not priority one for me, but Everton as a whole generally were back on the radar at the weekend. Yes,
Calvert-Lewin,
he would come into
Richarlison,
Spirit Blues, by the way, our Everton correspondent. Well done, Sean, if you're listening. Your team well deserved it, mate. Interesting stat that Everton scored the most goals away from home last year from set pieces or something, and like the fewest at home or something. I don't know if there's anything in
Rex,
that or
T-Rex,
something.
But then that's when they're bad.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Really fucking weird, isn't it? Listen, we've done the whole Rex and T-Rex thing. Rex didn't show up at Tottenham on Sunday. This was T-Rex. They were very good. The midfield threes made all the difference. A beautiful balance between them. Alan dictates the game and the way he wants it to be played and likes to tackle as well. The Corey is that box-to-box that they just haven't had for a long time. And Gomez is a very cultured footballer who we've discussed. He's either kind of 9 out of 10, 4 out of 10. Playing with those two guys to his right, he's going to be more like a 9 out of 10 more often. James Rodriguez was fantastic. He was, I'm sure for everybody but me, an absolute joy to watch. Absolutely brilliant. You can tell with certain players, when you say world class, there were certain things in a player's body shape and his first touch alone, which just scream world class to you. He has got it all. What a player. Don't know yet how that's going to translate for FPL, by the way.
No, but he's priced at 7.5 million, which is...
It's true. It is a very attractive price.
It's interesting. Like, you take James Rodriguez right now over a Maddison or Barnes, maybe. If you had to pick one now.
I think yes, because you would attack the fixture this week as well. And so West Brom, yeah, attack that. And there's a couple of good fixtures for Everton afterwards as well. So
he's in the bracket of those guys.
They've got a little spell where you go, oh, it's a good run as well. So timing-wise, it does feel right for Everton. Absolutely would not discount Calvert-Lewin as an option. You and I were talking about it on the way home yesterday, and I was telling you that he's got a lot of assets to his game that I really like. It's the goal scoring now.
That needs to be the icing on the cake.
The delivery and the header, that's as good as you see from a set piece. Absolutely brilliant. And it's about the one thing I wouldn't give massive blame to for Tottenham at the weekend was the goal. I think it was a brilliant delivery and a brilliant header. How Richarlison never scored in the game, I have no idea. Unbelievable. Man could have had a hat-trick. The returns will come for him.
Yeah.
I suspect of the three, him, James and Calvert-Lewin, I suspect that Richarlison will score the most of the three in terms of FPL points. Yeah. He'll score the most.
Maybe not goals, but points for sure.
But I don't know if it will be worth like that extra that million for Calvert-Lewin. I feel like it's one of them where that million elsewhere might be really handy. It's a tough call, actually.
Yeah.
People will want to target them this week, and I won't put you off. Other than, however bad you think Tottenham were on Sunday, we were worse.
Two more games we need to talk about, James. Last night, Sheffield United 0, Wolves 2, missed the first half driving home. Caught the last 15 minutes before the evening kickoff. Sheffield United were better in the second half, but I think Wolves have, from when we recorded with Bradley a couple of weeks ago to now, so many things have happened where obviously they've brought in new signings and Marcel and the little striker and what have you.
The little striker.
He's 19 years old, so I just feel like he's a kid. But 40 million euros for a kid is no joke.
Silva is the guy you're looking for.
What's Nuno?
Signing a new contract.
We're all disappointed about that because we'd all want to steal that guy as a manager. But I think all of that coming together suddenly have gone from and losing Doherty happened before all of this happened. So you went from a down suddenly to hang on a second. We brought in 2-3 new signings here, and there's potentially even more coming through the door if this Vinagre Porto player swap deal type thing happens to a club that actually are positive. And we were driving home from the studio yesterday, and Jimenez pops up and scores. And you just had that inevitability. We knew he was going to score 1 goal a game every game. We knew it.
He's not going to get 38 goals.
Well, you know what I mean. It's an average. It would be for 18, 19, 20 goals. But he ticks along so nicely, does Rael Jimenez. Like, did you feel any shock when he scored after like 5 minutes?
I don't feel shocked when Rael Jimenez scores in any game.
Exactly. I just look at it and I'm like,
he's a brilliant player, Jimenez.
I've owned him for so many game weeks last season, and he never let me down. And I feel like I let him down by not putting him back in my team.
Look, even Bradley said when he did correspondent week with us, he said, we asked him straight, he said, would you start with Jimenez or Ings? And he said Ings. And I think most of us,
this is his fault. Blame him.
To be fair to Bradley, the amount of times he's come out, can we re-record it, mate? Can we re-record it? Because obviously his mood has really swung from, you have to remember when we recorded with Bradley, even the Doherty move wasn't confirmed. It'd come off the back of losing disappointingly right at the death to Seville in Europa League quarterfinals. They finished the league campaign disappointingly, where they thought briefly they were going to challenge for a Champions League place and then didn't even end up with a Europa League place and struggled for goals. There was certain things yesterday that stood out for me that made me think there might be a difference. I think they've had 2 systems that we're familiar with, which is the 3-5-2/3-4-3. And it kind of hinges really on whether Dendoncker plays or not quite often, whether they play 3 in midfield or just play Moutinho and Neves. Now, Dendoncker played yesterday. Now, it might have been something that was targeted just for Sheffield United, but it's the first time I've seen them play a 2 in midfield where they emptied it and Dendoncker was always pushing forward. And it was just little things like that. How much of a threat Traore is from right wing back. We know that it's important to say he played the last 25 minutes up front when they changed. But even from right wing back, he offers a threat. What they had was direct pace, a little bit more than normal when they counter-attack. Everything good was basically getting the ball in quick to Neto or Podence or Jimenez and then springing from there. They were very quick when they did it. And the obvious thing to me was they were getting more men forward early in that game. Now, that changed after 20 minutes or so because they didn't need to. There's literally no worse side in this league, other than Liverpool and City, that you could go 2-0 down to after 5 minutes. And Sheffield United did a right set and half, flex hit the post and that. They had other chances. But we might see a little bit of a different Wolves here offensively, actually. I think it's something really to watch in the opening few weeks. If I suspect probably against Man City, they'll go back to 5-3-2. Neves comes back in the team. And I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if Traore played up front because it worked so well against them last season in the game at the Etihad. But I think what we saw yesterday is probably more what we're likely to see. What they did really well was they countered Sheffield United's threat in terms of that wide pass and overlapping runs. Although Sheffield United did have some success with it once they changed very late in the game to a back 4 when they started overlapping and get extra runners involved. They were taking chances. I mean, Traore had so many efforts on the break and that were blocked and whatnot. Very good for Wolves. I don't think Sheffield United should be massively concerned.
Similar to Southampton, right? When they've had a bad result, you can trust the manager to stick his boot up and just get them back to their basics.
The concern is the potential £50 million striker, sorry, Tomo, has got an injury and he's had an operation. So he's going to be out for a while. And I don't see goals in McBurney, Sharp, etc. And It's the difference of having them and Jimenez. Jimenez gives you a chance in every single football match.
Yep.
Genuinely.
Could have scored
They could have one kick and he'll score and they'll win 1-0.
Yep.
I don't get that feeling with these guys, even playing in the two. And they did have chances. I mean, there was actually, Wolves were slightly fortunate by the end of the game to keep the clean sheet. The other thing just to point out is, I think the goalkeeper's at fault on both of them goals.
Okay.
I think you should save both of them. I think Dean Henderson saves both of them.
It's hard to. I don't like comparisons like that because it's hard because you can never prove it right or wrong. It's interesting. I've not been put. It was
the
bad.
The Jimenez strike.
But after that first 15, 20 minutes, Sheffield United were better. Looking at their fixtures that they've got coming up, I think they've got Villa, Leeds, Fulham in the next few. Right, they got Villa, Leeds, then Arsenal, then Fulham. The Villa, Leeds, Fulham games. I'm still confident having Ramsdale in goal.
Yeah, it's fine.
Now, if they're still leaky and rubbish after that, then I think I may look at a sideways move to Leno, for example. But I'm not. It wasn't bad enough to make me think, oh, I need to get rid here straight away.
Let's not call them leaky, and listen. The goalkeeper errors, and I'm going to call them that, from Ramsdale yesterday are not on the level of Kepa. Absolutely, definitely should have fucking saved Trossard's shot. We'll come on to that. But literally, both the Jimenez goal and the Saiss goal, I'm questioning instantly where the ball's gone in the goal and why the goalkeeper's not saving it.
Yeah.
The Jimenez goal, if he levers that with laces with full power and it goes right above his head, you go, yeah, fair enough. He's passed the thing in the net, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't at like 80 mile an hour and causing him mass problems. I think, he got left in on his left-hand side and couldn't get up. And the same thing happened on Saiss's goal. He's not in the corner. I just think you need to be aware of that as an owner of Sheffield United defensively, that he's a good goalkeeper. He's not Henderson.
No.
And that might cause some issues, because if that continues, they're going to concede some goals in games that would have kept clean sheets in last season, is my opinion.
Right, next up, the last game before we can do a couple of Twitter questions and what have you, was the Brighton Chelsea game. I said to you earlier, it was the performance of champions from Chelsea.
Yeah, I don't know what you fucking expect from champions. That's not what I saw, man.
Champions win games that they shouldn't. Champions drag games across the line that they didn't deserve to win. And Chelsea didn't deserve to win yesterday.
Nobody's ever won a fucking Premier League with Kepa in goal, mate.
I don't think it's going to affect their ability to win the title, because I think they'll outscore teams when they need to. I am
telling you, if he stays in goal, they are more likely to finish outside the top four than win the league.
Well, there's no way of proving that, because statistically,
I'll prove it to you when they finish fifth after 38 games.
No, but you can't, because Kepa's not going to be in goal for 38 games,
probably
because they're going to buy Edouard Mendy in a couple of weeks. So it's never going to play out. I know people think I'm mad in what I'm thinking, but Chelsea were bad, yet there was nothing in that performance that made me think, actually, you know what, I need to not stick with Havertz and Werner, or that I won't end up with a potential Chelsea triple up with James, Havertz and Werner moving forward. That they've got a lot of players left to come back into the team. Werner looks a real threat. Like the thing I like with Werner is his ability to maneuver his body. Like, there was quite a few one-on-one situations where he was against the bigger defender where he came away with the ball because he can lever himself to keep the ball. He keeps the ball really well, looks after it. He's rapid. He's going to score some goals this season. He's all right as Timo Werner. Havertz had a quiet game, and I'll give him a pass. He didn't do anything particularly bad. He just didn't influence the game particularly. Give him a couple more weeks and I'll see where I am with that. And Reece James looked good, but I thought Chelsea are still going to be a threat and definitely worth keeping FPL assets from, because they're so cheap compared to some of the other premium clubs. But Brighton were decent. Lamptey, you got to love Lamptey, because he's the sort of player that makes you smile. Actually. Yeah. It was the fearlessness. I was like, go on, son. When he was going for it.
I think it's because he's really little as well.
Yeah, I look at it and then I think, okay, so imagine Reece James and Tariq Lamptey in Chelsea training sessions. When you got Reece James is like brick shit house and Tariq Lamptey's tiny, you can understand how Reece James is getting a lot of the focus and he's the young one that's going to come through, and why Lamptey in the end was sold. But
Reece James is also a better player, to be fair.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, they've not had enough first team minutes or Lamptey definitely hasn't to make that judgment. But when he picked up the ball and he was running at Alonso or whatever, and I'm like, I felt like, go on, son, because he's just got that little energy.
There's a major problem with this though for the listeners. What's Lamptey's FPL points yesterday?
Probably 0.
0.
I think overall, Brighton are gonna be all right this season. Just I like the way they set up with 5 at the back. I think it allows March and Lamptey to push forward, and they've got solidity in there.
I like Solly March. I've said that a number of times.
Azate, I don't know about whether or not he's going to stay in that team long term, but he did all right.
Bissouma for the first hour was brilliant. I thought he was really good, which can be really difficult to do in that area when you've got Kante in there.
Yeah.
But passing really good. He had the right energy. Was winning the ball. To be honest, I was watching him. I was thinking, I'll take him.
The only thing is, for all their hard work and domination, and we talk about Kepa's mistake, and it was a mistake. There's no bones about it. I didn't feel like Brighton threatened particularly. They didn't have a lot of clear-cut chances or got in. They had a few shots from range and what have you. They weren't clinical, and I didn't feel like at any point, hang on a second, they're going to knock in a goal or two.
No, it was link play rather than individual stuff from Maupay or Maupay and Connolly.
A little bit, but not. I was never fearful.
Maupay and Connolly both worked the channels really well. It was interesting that obviously Trossard went deeper when Lallana went off, because it would have been interesting to see Trossard play as a central striker again at the weekend against Newcastle as well, which is not to say that he won't. I think he's the interesting one, Trossard, to keep an eye on.
0.5% ownership. Man.
Wow.
It's tiny, isn't it?
I think, look, you've got Newcastle this Sunday. It's not as easy a game as it might have looked pre-game week 1. We've got Manchester United in game week 3, and it might be one we come back and look at again. I agree with you. Look, I really like what they do defensively. The way they set up. There's a lot I don't like about them defensively. I like the methodology and the idea behind what they're trying to do, but they keep conceding the same goal playing out from the back. And I think the issue isn't the way they want to play. The issue is the quality in that area. And it's another reason why I thought Lallana would particularly play deep for them. Because you can give him the ball and you can trust him. He won't give it away. If he goes backwards, he goes backwards. He's very good on the half turn, trusts his own ability, although unfortunately I hope it's not bad, but he's obviously got another injury now as well. The players that they've played in there aren't comfortable enough receiving the ball back to goal. And you can go and look at the United Liverpool games before restart. So many of the goals are conceded the same. Playing out from the back, absolutely fine in principle, what we'd encourage, losing the ball and then getting done. That's exactly what happened on the penalty yesterday. And it's cost them. Because genuinely, when Brighton equalised, I thought they might win this, They've been the better side here, is what was going through my head. Then, to be fair, 60 seconds later, I went, wow.
That was the thing. When I say the hallmark of Chelsea came back and they got the lead again so quickly. They took the game by the scruff, and it was a wonder strike. But it's why I thought, okay, they do mean business, the Chelsea team. But I'm not really any further on looking at any Brighton assets necessarily. But the Chelsea ones are staying in. I think Webster was not great, right? In
terms of the Chelsea asset I want, on what I saw last night, it became very clear to me which one I want. It's Pulisic.
We haven't seen him play yet.
I know that.
You haven't seen him play yet.
I thought Werner very good. I'm not sure that he's going to get the number of goals that everybody thinks he's going to get. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant player. I really, really do. But I'm not sure that it will get more than 20 goals, is my instinct at the moment. I think he's going to be as much a good creator as a scorer. And I'm not convinced at the moment that it's going to be worth the money. Ask me again in 7 days, though, when I'm looking at them about to play West Brom, and I'm thinking, fuck, I might need to get this guy in as captain, and that's worth mentioning. Havertz, if I didn't know better, on what I saw last night, I'd have said, that's a shit footballer. Genuinely. Now, I know better than that. What did you say to me about the reason you got him in your team?
I watched his goals and assists that he created last season for what's his face.
And what was the key thing you said about it?
In the box.
How many touches he had in the penalty box last
Probably
night?
none.
None is the
But
correct
then
answer.
also, I'd be interested to know how many touches in the penalty area any Chelsea player had, even Timo Werner, because so much of his work was done outside of the penalty box.
Timo Werner definitely had a big one. He got brought down for a penalty. Mate.
That's one. But I think he touched the ball outside the box, and then it was quite on the edge.
Then it must have been a free kick outside, no?
No, well, he got fouled inside, but he knocked it past Ryan from outside the box. I don't know.
We'll get the steal for that.
Chelsea were not good. This is the thing, right? They had no attacking fluidity.
Harvit's
in that team.
in that position on the right. It didn't work, and I don't think it's. Don't misunderstand. I don't think it's necessarily a criticism of the player, because everything that I've seen and read and been told is 10 position. So why he played in that position last night, I'm not quite sure. Because then he had to do more defensive work as well.
Yeah, I thought the way that they were going to set up would be Loftus-Cheek on the right and let Havertz play in the middle. I don't know why they let it set up like that. I can't sell him though.
I'm not saying you should. What I am saying is, I wanted to see things, because how many times have I said I want to watch the first two games? I want to watch the first two games before I do anything. I didn't see anything last night, truthfully, that made me want to fire him. Well, definitely not him. Or Timo Werner into my team, particularly.
Werner definitely, but Havertz, I can agree with you. But then players do end up putting themselves in these don't buy, don't sell territory sometimes. And Havertz right now, if you own him, I don't think it's worth selling him. But if you don't own him,
definitely don't sell.
I don't think it's worth.
It.
I think you're right, and it's don't buy right now either. I think he is in that don't sell, don't buy territory.
The conscious one to be aware of is where he played last night is not fucking good though. He was doing things. There were certain things on the ball. I mean, give one pass away, I was like, Jesus Christ! I wouldn't expect like my mum to kick a football like that.
Yeah,
I know he's a good player. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is, I wanted to judge him on what I saw. I didn't see anything last night that would make me be interested in him as an FPL asset. Timo Werner, yes, definitely. He's going to want him running behind and stuff. I'm just not convinced. I look at the games coming up. Liverpool's obviously going to be tough. Even with West Brom, if they go with that back five again, where's he got that space to be going in behind? And I've spoken about this as a potential problem for him. How is he going to get space in behind? Brighton are one of the easiest teams to play against in this regard, in terms of trying to get space in channels and stuff, because they play open and they're brave on the ball and stuff, and they have a massive problem with turnovers at the moment when they lose the ball. So you do get more space against them than many other teams. It can lull you in. The closer I get, the more I'm thinking, game week 3 will pass me by and I still won't have any Chelsea players, you know.
Interesting. Well, game week 3 is West Brom, so that could be a dangerous one.
I get that, because on paper right now, Werner is the best captaincy in that game week.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I think the Liverpool-Chelsea game this weekend, or Chelsea-Liverpool, is going to be really interesting. It's a completely different
be a great game. Yeah, of course.
So we'll actually see both sides in a very different light. Yeah.
I want to see Havertz play centrally. That's the point. And I think anybody who knows him well is probably going, yeah, he needs to play central, James. And I get that.
Yeah. I still think he'll start again this weekend as well.
Yeah, why wouldn't he? He's got too much quality. That's not in doubt. All I'm saying is, on what I saw last night, just that alone.
There's no rush.
I'm not looking at the moment.
There's no rush.
Whereas I kind of thought something was going to turn me last night, and it didn't.
There we go. We've got time to do a couple of Twitter questions, James, and we only really need to do a couple of Twitter questions because I've had a quick look down the Twitter questions, and as always, we've done a fantastic job of answering them all.
That's a shame that we've got to do any of them because I haven't read the questions, so I have no idea what's coming.
Tim Lum, should I start looking forward to 2021, 2022 now? Hashtag 36 points. Well, you got more than James.
You got more than me, Tim.
So I mean, you start your own podcast, mate, and that's what it's all about.
The dream for the stress ball has probably died in game week 1, Tim, but yeah, don't worry about it, man.
There's 2 questions on this fella. One from Viali Gonzalez. I hope I've pronounced your name very well. And another further down as well, which I will find in a second and give you a shout. Dele Alli, subbed off at half time.
I thought the question was from Dele Alli.
Sell, in your opinion?
Oh, mate.
Move him on, be done with it? Or is he going to get back into that team?
I don't. For the patrons, I don't want to just fucking repeat myself over. Okay, different slant on it. Southampton are best for me in a 4-2-2/4-4-2, however you want to describe it. There's another game for Tottenham on Thursday, which you might feel different about afterwards. A little bit like in a sense of Brighton, Southampton are also, if you can get in the right areas, are one of the better teams from that perspective to play against in this league, particularly for a midfield runner attacking the penalty box. So I wouldn't rule it out. It asks me right now, I don't even know if he'll start. There might be a good asset. So for me, it would be...
just move on for now.
If you can afford to work that to Rashford or Fernandes, or if Greenwood looks like he's going to start at the weekend, I really wouldn't think twice about it. Just get it done.
And then the other question is about Aubameyang's bonus points, because I know you're looking to captain him. And the question is he less likely to get BPS because he's a midfielder now? I feel like this weekend, because he only got the one attacking return's a bit of an anomaly, because Willian picked up 3 attacking returns. And on top of that, Gabriel picked up 2 returns with the clean sheet and the goal and what have you. So it's not often that players pick up double returns in a game, 2 or 3 returns, and that's why Aubameyang, his yellow card obviously clearly would have gone against him as well. So 1 attacking return and a yellow card in a game when you've got 3 attacking returns and 2 attacking returns from players has had an impact there.
One of the things that's always benefited Aubameyang from that perspective is, unlike a lot of players, his shot ratio is not as high as, say, Salah, for example. He doesn't tend to get as penalised as badly for missing chances and whatnots. I was just trying to see if I could get his BPS from the weekend. You can. I just need to fucking click on him, which I'm miles away from doing at the moment.
He scored a grand total of 19 BPS.
That's shit.
Declan Rice got 15.
No, that's shit. 19 bonus points not going to get you nothing.
No.
I need to understand a bit better why that would be the case. The yellow card part the reason, but even without that, he wouldn't have been hitting bonus, because Lacazette's on about 28 there, I think.
Lacazette, 29. Close.
So, yeah, there could be something in that. However, listen, if I was to captain him, if you would give me 7 points from every game week, I can't give a fuck. So, and that's essentially the goal and the appearance points, right? Never mind any clean sheet or bonus on top. So, he's a killer in front of goal. The thing with him is you can see it coming, you still can't stop it.
Yep.
Great player. I hope he leaves. He won't. He's signed a new contract.
Yeah. There we go. That's a full rundown of all 8 fixtures that we've had. We've got 10 fixtures coming at you next week after this in the full episode. But you probably need to go and listen to our podcast with... there's probably podcasters that scored more themselves than 2 of us combined this last game week.
Listen,
So.
well, I'll repeat what I always say. If you came here looking to be an FPL expert, you got the wrong fucking podcast. But we'll have a laugh along the way.
We will indeed. Anybody that's interested in additional podcasts, you can head over to patreon.com/planetfpl. I mentioned briefly earlier, we've got some prize leagues. We've also got a Slack channel, the 5 additional shows we do each week as well. We've got Q&A, we've got a quiz, we've got a patrons poll, we've got other shows.
Insight into Brentford this week.
Yeah, all sorts of great content to share with you there as well. And if you are listening on the audio wherever you are, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, whether you're on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button, because it all helps get our message out to more people. Other than that, hope you had a better game week than we did. Every week's another chance to keep going up.
Yours was all right. Listen,
average.
Average. I'm like the teenager out in the pool. I just love the chase.
Stay safe, everybody. Make sure you're not socialising with more than 5 other people. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.